Hi, I'm Christine Connor, the owner of Amelia Scott Designs and the original creator and author of Edge to Edge Quilting on Your Embroidery Machine. We have put together a quick walkthrough of my edge to edge process. There's still valuable information in our top-selling Edge to Edge Quilting on Your Embroidery Machine book, like where to start when you quilt, and more detailed information on making templates, and now in our second edition we also have information on using the magnetic hoops. However, this walkthrough will give you a great idea of how simple my method is and hopefully inspire you to give it a try. So when you are preparing your quilt to be quilted, you're going to first make a quilt sandwich. And with a quilt sandwich, what you're going to do is you're going to have your backing fabric wrong side facing up, like I have here. You're going to have a low loft batting, and then you're going to have your quilt top facing right side up. You're going to cut the backing and the batting at least 6 inches larger than your quilt, especially if it's a big one like this one. This is a big one. If it's a smaller quilt, you can probably get away with 5 inches, but for the most part, I usually have 6 extra inches of backing and batting all the way around. By the way, when you take a quilt to a long arm quilter, that is something they ask you to do too, because they have to sew the backing and batting to leaders. We need the extra space for hooping, okay? We don't hoop air. You will not get good results hooping air. So we have to have something in the hoop. So I'm really not asking you to do anything that a long arm quilter would ask you to do. Now, when I do a large quilt, I pin the quilt in place. I pin baste it in place. And these pins are little curved pins. I like them a whole lot. They're curved, and so they go in real easy. You will notice I wanted to show you this quilt because you can see how sparsely I pin. I mean, here is my hand, and I've got a pin here, pin here, pin here, and one down here. I do that on purpose because with when you're embroidering on your quilting machine, you don't need a lot of pins. You just need to hold the 3 layers in place. The hoop will hold the rest in place. And I have never had a tuck or a wrinkle on the back of my quilts unless I didn't iron it before. You have to iron your backing and make sure there aren't any tucks in the fabric to begin with. But I have never had a tuck or a buckle in the back of my quilt. Now the other thing I do, here's a helpful little tip that I You'll notice there's not any pins right in here because that is going to be where my first column is going to go. And why should I have any pins where my first column is going to go? Because I'm just going to have to take them out. Now, if you're doing a smaller quilt, and here I have a small quilt, if you're doing a smaller quilt, you can just spray baste it, and that's what I've done here. And I did get a little skimpy with my batting here, I'm going to be mad at myself when I get to the edge and I have to pull on that batting. So that's why I asked you to do the batting and the backing. But I will have to deal with this because I chose to do it that way. I've been doing this for a long time. When you start quilting, you're going to start somewhere in the middle, and that will depend upon whether you have odd or even number columns. And the book will show you how to figure out how many columns you will have on your quilt. So I always start at the very top of the quilt. I would start way up here and work my way down in what I call a column. Now, we're going to get into the technique, and here there are 4 parts of the technique. There are special designs, which I create. There are templates, which you make. There's positioning, which is your machine. And then my 4th one is magnetic hoops. You don't really need a magnetic hoop, but gosh, it makes your life so much easier and it makes the quilting so much faster. I would be amiss if I didn't tell you about those. Ten years ago, embroidery designs all started in the middle and then jumped to the first stitch. I thought when I was making some quilt designs for my quilts that it would make it a lot easier to connect if I just put the start point on the left-hand side. So that's what I started doing. Let me tell you, that was a really foreign concept 10 years ago. When I talked to store owners about that, they were looking at me pretty weird when I said I have changed the start point to the left side. I also decided to give you, it made a lot of sense to give you two files, an A file, what I call A file, and a B file. And here I'm just going to lay down 4 A file designs. This is a baby bottle design from the, or baby design from our Edge to Edge book. Well, you get 10 designs in the Edge to Edge book when you buy it. So this is one of the designs, and you can see here that the baby bottle is just starting to march across that quilt, as is the duck. And you also have the rattle. We're starting to get rows of elements in our designs, and that's not going to look real attractive on a quilt. So what I did was I rotated one of the designs, and I called it a B file. Now look, doesn't that look a lot better? It's got a lot more flow. More tosh. You got ducks that are upside down, right side up, and so on. Now, sometimes you don't need a B file, and I do want to point that out. Here I have 2 A files. This is a rose design from Expansion Pack 5, I do believe. And, 2 A designs. Now, watch when I turn it around and show you the B design. Kind of looks the same, doesn't it? Not much of a difference. So personally, if I were using the rose design on a quilt, I would just use the A design all through the quilt and forget about the B. But I give you the B design because if I give you an expansion pack without the A file and the B file in it, you're going to be emailing me saying, Christine, I'm missing my B file. Okay? So you get both, but sometimes you just have to make a judgment call. Now you're probably wondering, move this. You're probably wondering, let me explain exactly what the B file is. So the B file is just a file that has been rotated 180 degrees. And you may be thinking, just like I thought 10 years ago or 12 years ago, why not just rotate that in your machine? Well, you really can't do that because the start point is here. When I rotate it in the machine, guess where the start point is? It's on the wrong side. I need it over here. And even if you were to change the start point in your machine to over here, because it's digitized to start here, your machine would put the needle down here and then jump over to here. So that's why I give you an A file and a B file to make your connections, make connecting the design super easy for you. Templates help you get the design in the correct place on your quilt. It's a very easy concept. You simply hoop fabric that's been stabilized, and I think you can see the stabilizer on the front up here. You're going to hoop the fabric that has been stabilized. You're going to stitch the design. So this is the A design. And before I remove it from the hoop, I'm going to trace around the inside of the hoop, all the way around with just a regular ballpoint pen, nothing special. I'm going to put a big letter A at the top. I'm also going to make a little notch where my horizontal and vertical markings are on my hoop, and then I'm going to take it out of the hoop. Now I'm simply going to cut on this line. And then what I also like to do is take a ruler and connect these horizontal and vertical lines where I drew the notches. Okay. Then when I place a template on my quilt, I can very easily hoop around the template and then attach the bottom portion and take that, remove the template, and then take that to my machine and stitch it out. Now the book has tons of tips on hooping 3 layers of quilts. So I'll let you read that in the book, and we'll move on to the columns. Okay, when you are quilting, you're going to be quilting in columns, not rows. Columns going down the length of the quilt. Now here you can see my first design, my second design, my third design, my fourth design. I think, yeah, there's just 4 designs here. And you'll notice in between each design, I'm leaving a 1/2 inch of space. I even left a 1/2 inch up at the top as well. And that will just help you in case you get a little bit wonky in your hooping. Okay, we want to have some security or padding in there. When you finish your A column, then you're going to bring in your B design. That's the one that's upside down. You'll connect it, the start point of the B design, to the end point of the A design, and you'll stitch out a B connecting to the A, B connecting to the A, B connecting to the A, and B connecting to the A. And then you'll go and alternate. You'll alternate between A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, however wide your quilt is. So now we're on an A, and this is what I do, how I use my template. When I'm getting ready to connect a design, and we'll just come in here, we'll zoom in a little bit more. I use my template. I fold it over so I can see the start point on the back, and I just kind of place it right next to the end point of the prior design. Make sure my template is straight. I pin the template to the quilt, and then I simply hoop around it. Your points, you'll want them to be kissing, not overlapping. Okay, then I just remove the template, and that's where my positioning will come in. But here you can very clearly in the hoop see the tail, so it makes it very easy, or the end point, it makes it very easy for you to connect. Okay, now this quilt, the designs in this quilt have been resized using my Pro technique to fit this quilt perfectly. So you'll notice they end right at the edge. Your designs, when you're doing regular edge to edge on a quilt, your design, unless you go into the Pro method, your designs will stitch off the side of the quilt, and they will stitch off the bottom of the quilt. And if they don't, if they fit perfectly, you need to call me. I'm coming over. We're having a champagne lunch because it hasn't happened yet. So the design will actually go off the edge of the quilt. And how you handle that is you simply fold back the edge of the bottom or the side. You lay a piece of paper towel in there and just spray baste it and really secure it. It's not a problem when the foot goes off the quilt, but it is a problem when it comes back on the quilt. So you want to make sure the edge is very secure. The other thing you can do if you don't want to use spray basting is, let's say that's going off about like that. When it comes over off the quilt, like I said, it's no problem going off. You can just stop your machine, advance through the stitches until the needle is back over the fabric, and then start the quilt again too. And if you're concerned about having stitches going off and coming on to your quilt and then cutting it even, you don't have to worry about stitches coming undone because your binding will secure all those stitches. You know, I've been doing all my quilts this way for 12 years. I throw them in the washing machine and dryer, and I have yet to have any stitches come undone. Okay, let's talk about positioning. This is where you need to know how your machine works. And that's why you buy your machine from a reputable dealer, because they're having classes and training you on how to use your machine. When you load the design into your machine, the needle will automatically move over to the left. And by the way, I took the template off because the template is only for getting the hoop in the right spot. My hoop was already in the right spot, so I didn't need it anymore. All right. Now I'm going to use the positioning feature on this machine to move the needle so that it is right up here with my end point. And my machine is called the move button, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just moving that needle so that it's right at the edge of that point. Now, of course, if you have a camera or you have a laser or you have projector or any of those really cool features, then by all means use those. But I'm not going to use that today to show you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sink the needle and see how close I am. Gosh darn, I'm pretty darn close there. I'm going to bring up my bobbin here, and I'm going to pull the bobbin to make sure that that is an extension of the knot. The bobbin should just pull out, and it should just look like the thread is continually extending past that point. That's how I know I've got the point in the right spot. Okay, and again, the 2 points should be kissing, not overlapped. So then I would just simply pull the bobbin up. I'm going to pull the bobbin up, and when I bring the bobbin up, I do move it over to the side, and then I stitch. Okay, now I do want to say one thing, that Baby Lock and Brother machines have an override to my digitized design, and their interface starts all designs in the center. And there is a super easy way to override that in the machine like I've done here, and that is all explained also in the book. I don't want to get machine specific in a general class. This is one of my favorite inventions, and it was created by Eileen Roche, who is a partner at the company called Designs in Machine Embroidery, or I just call them DIME for short. And that is her magnetic hoop. Magnetic hoops have really taken what's already an easy process and made it even easier and faster. And so I would be remiss if I did not share that with you. A quilt that used to take me 8 hours now takes me 4 hours. It really speeds up the quilting process. The magnetic hoop will not hurt your machine. That is simply an urban legend. I have been using them on my machines for the past 5 years, and I own the top of the line of 3 different brands. So let me show you how this works. So first of all, the bottom portion of the hoop, the magnetic hoop, just stays in the machine, and you put everything on top. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to stitch out this design, and then I want to show you how I slide it to the next design. And I call that the Amelia Scott snap hoop slide, but we have to stitch one out in order for me to do that. So we'll just watch it real quick, and then we'll move on our merry way. Okay, so this is called the Amelia Scott Snap Hoop Slide. And by the way, Eileen liked it so much at Dime that she's actually sharing it in her presentations now. So what I do first of all is I lift up the hoop, and I put my hand underneath it. Now, that may seem scary to anybody who's used a magnetic hoop because it really hurts when you slam your fingers in the hoop. But when you have all these layers and you gently lift it up, it does not hurt, okay? So I'm going to take that, I'm going to slide the top hoop forward. And you'll see here that it just kind of hangs on the edge of the hoop because it's magnetic. Now I'm going to take the fabric on the side, and I'm going to slide it back. I'm going to pull the fabric back. So I slid the top hoop forward. I'm sliding the fabric back. Now I'm just going to make sure the hoop is set correctly because the machine only reads the bottom portion of the hoop. So that's pretty good. And you can see how close I am. Now I always take a ruler and I just kind of measure that I am straight when I'm using a magnetic hoop. And I'm about 1.25 inches all the way down. Okay. Then I'm just going to use my positioning. You can see how close I am. Let's get this camera back a little bit closer in. You can see how close I am already. My fabric's already straight in the hoop. And I'm just going to use my positioning to simply move over. Sink my needle. I'm not quite there, almost, but not quite. One up, one over. Okay. I'm going to bring my bobbin up in a new place, and I want to go up one more. I'm going to trim that bobbin a little bit so I'm not pulling up so much fabric. And then there we go. It's a perfect extension of the next design. And that's how you do the Maylie Scott snap hoop slide. You slide the top hoop forward, pull the fabric back, make sure the hoop is set, and you're quilting just like that. I say the silly rhyme so it sticks inside your mind. It's the Maylie Scott snap hoop slide. Now also, I want to remind you, you don't need to have a snap hoop. I'm just showing you this because it makes your quilting so much easier and so much faster. Remember, I started doing this 12 years ago. They didn't have magnetic hoops 12 years ago. So for many, 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 many years, I used a standard hoop and I quilted a lot of quilts, and you can too.